very
Yeah.
British word.
The bleep.
Bleep.
Oh,
I know.
alive.
Emily and I have just been talking about what we're going to call this episode because whilst we were able to put a beautiful asterisk in like when home ed goes to bleep, we couldn't actually think of an appropriate word. So we had a lot of fun in our group chat sending possible words to each other, which resulted in a lot of uncontextualized swearing. So it was a lot of fun. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We are going to be talking about how to home educate or what home education feels like when it all just starts going horribly wrong and it's hot and nothing's working and everyone's frazzled and all your best laid plans go to hell. And as a perfect example of this, the third person who should be joining us, Charlotte, her life is so bad at the moment that she couldn't actually join us. It was like, there was just too much. She was like, I'm
The
sorry, I'm looking
irony.
after a dog, I'm pregnant, I've got 4 children. It's like, it's baking hot and I'm in a paddling pool. Like, that's fair dues. You do that. So, Emily, this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about the craziness that is home education when, like those perfectly curated home ed Instagrammers. And nowadays there's a real trend to show you the perfectness, but then they curate the non-perfectness. So it's like you see a curated when it goes wrong, and it's never like that wrong. I always think like, what, that's your going wrong? Like, wow, okay, that's my good day, and you're showing you like what you think is a bad day. And I think so we're going to be uncurated today because my home ed journey has gone a bit to hell in the last week, rather stressfully and magnificently. And Emily, I know life isn't a barrel of roses or whatever it's called. Bag of. This is why we
I
edit
don't know.
podcasts.
It's definitely
Because
not a
otherwise
barrel of laughs, that's
I'd
for sure.
slither. Carry on, Emily.
Yeah, I think, do you know, well, there's two aspects to it. I think there's the kind of the external stuff that happens that just throws everything off course. And then I think there's also like the development stages of your child, and your child just suddenly, you think you've got it. I always liken it to when you've got a baby and you think you've nailed nap times and routine, and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then they hit the next milestone and it all just goes to bleep.
And when you have multiple
And
children, you can sometimes have them all hitting it at the same time, right? And you're like,
yeah,
what is this chaos?
yeah, exactly that. And I think the same thing happens with home ed. You're like that. Yeah, I've nailed it. We've got the best timetable. We've got this routine and it's just brilliant. And then one day you go to do it and it's just like, whoa, what the hell's happened here? This is not like, everyone's melting down. No one wants to do anything, or stuff gets cancelled, or I don't know, like loads of different things happen. And you're suddenly like, oh God, this isn't working anymore. Or everyone's stressed and it becomes a chore. Because that's the other thing, is that, you can think, oh, yeah, we get up and we do maths, and then we, have a snack, and then we do some
You're
crafts,
living
and
the
then we go out
Instagram
in the
life,
afternoon.
right? For like 3 days.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh,
yeah.
wow.
And then you're like, I've got to get out. Come on, we've got to get the breakfast done because we've got to do maths. And oh my
And they're like, oh,
God,
not that again. I don't want to play with my
Yeah.
favorite toy 3 days in a row. That would just be terrible for me.
yeah. And again, as a home educating parent, if you're then working around all of this, it can get really thrown, because I know for me, like, my girls will get really into certain things and I'll be like, this is brilliant. They're playing beautifully. They have they take over the whole house. I literally can't move for like toy horses or Playmobil or something, because they've created these massive worlds everywhere. But they'll play for ages really well. And I'm like, brilliant. I get all this work done. And then then I plan for that. Then I'm like, oh, great. So I'll plan the day like, oh, yeah, they'll play with that. And no, they're just like,
The thing
hanging around,
the thing
being
that was
irritating
amazing for
or
them
arguing.
for like 2 days suddenly is like, why would I want to play with Lego? I'm just like, why are you even
What are you
suggesting
talking
that? That's a
about?
crazy idea. I hate Lego.
Yeah.
I famously hate Lego. And it's like, okay. I planned my entire day around like 5 hours of you playing Lego.
And then the annoying thing is that they'll want to play for hours when you've got other things going on, or you don't have a project that you need to be
Yeah.
doing, you're like, oh, let's do something wholesome. They're like, no, I just want to play with this for hours. Like it just,
Or is it like a really sunny
and
day and you want to do something outside or something, and they're like, no, I want to like sit and like do this app or read this book or whatever, and all you want to do is go and sit outside. Like it's the only thing in the world. You just want to be like this, like Wall-E, you know, where you're like all your like solar panels are going up, and they're like, no, I'm going to sit in a dark room and pull the curtains. Or they do that on a rainy day. They're like, let's go out. It's an amazing day, and it's
oh yeah, I want to ride my bike. Really?
And it's interesting that this has turned into a kind of aren't children annoying podcast, which is actually I've never done one because I actually think children are really lovely. But there is no doubt that there are times when you home educate, and I think it is when when things are going wrong that it's like all the slight annoyances and grievances, they all just come up for everybody, don't they? Like everyone just gets
Yeah.
angsty with each other.
And I think the problem is that when you're in a good place, when stuff's going well, that all still happens, but you manage it better
Mm.
because you're in a good place, everything's going okay, and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll do maths a little bit later, or we'll do it tomorrow, or we'll whatever. I don't know why I keep using maths as an example, but
I do.
yeah, because we're all like, oh, we've got to fit it in. Um, but I think it's at those times where you need it home ed to be going okay because everything else is falling apart. And the reality is that because everything else is falling apart, home ed suddenly feels really hard.
Yeah.
But I think anything to do with children, like even if they were in school or whatever, would feel hard when life is tough. And I think we tend to be overly harsh on ourselves as home educators because what that turns into often is us going, oh my God, is this the right decision? Should I be doing this? I'm doing terrible at this. I'm everything,
It
you know,
becomes a
I
bigger
can't
thing,
do
doesn't
this.
it? It's like we take it from
Yeah,
one bad day to I'm ruining their lives. I should never have taken them out of school.
exactly that. Whereas, you know, if it would, you know, if life was going crazy, it would still be a struggle trying to make sure that you were getting them to school, that you were getting their homework done and those things, but you wouldn't question that as a life choice. You would just be like, this is hard. And I think we have on top of that the guilt that comes, oh God, am I messing this up? Have I taken on too much? And all of that comes in. And obviously, you often feel you can't talk to other people about it because then people are like, well, put them in school.
Exactly. There's zero sympathy because everyone's like, yeah, but you've made this problem. And like, also they kind of a bit don't like it because almost like they think that you're casting aspersions about how they've done it or their childhood or whatever, right? And so not only are they like a little bit not loving it, but then they're like, well, there's an obvious solution to this and it's this big building down the road, and so it's really hard. You end up just having to keep it all in. And even
Yeah.
really good like friends and family, like even they can it can be a problem, can't it? Because even people who are quite supportive can be a bit like, well, have you thought about flexi schooling or maybe a forest school or something? It's like there's always like a something school solution.
I think the problem is as a society, we are very solution focused in our offer of support to people, and that's not always the right support that people need. But we're not very good at, as a rule, sort of feeling whether someone just needs space to let things out and they just need to be listened to and heard, as opposed to solutions. We're designed, particularly I think British culture, to go, let me find a solution, let me make these uncomfortable emotions go away by giving someone a solution.
Yeah, please don't bring me your emotions. Here is the solution so you never have to mention them again to me.
Yeah, exactly that.
I mean, like when I do relationship counseling, it's exactly the same thing. It's like that, it's like establish at the start of the conversation what sort of conversation you're wanting to have here. Is this please give me solutions? And even if it is, always do the validating, I'm listening to what you're saying, empathizing bit first. Like always just tick that bit off first before you get to the solution. So I know that some of my biggest keywords for home education are freedom and flexibility. Like they're the things that I think make it what it is. But they can be also like some of the biggest challenges, can't they? because with the freedom comes, well, anything could go wrong and like you've got no backup. And then with the flexibility, like you say, it's like one day this works, one day it doesn't work or something like that. So tell us, Emily, about your home education journey at the moment. Tell us about
Right.
your life.
Well, I mean, so for me at the moment, it's very much my home ed journey is like this. And that is partly down to my health and also my daughter's, I don't want to say health, but because two of my daughters have lots of medical appointments, that can also really throw things out because obviously it throws timetables out. Their medical appointments aren't always local to us, so that's always a big thing. They need a lot of time to process afterwards. They find them quite challenging. As you know, with the NHS, they get cancelled or you get them at the last minute and things like that. So our journey, and that's been the same with me as well, because I'm living with chronic health condition, so I get flare-ups, which cause me to not be able to function as well as I would like to be functioning. And it means that we sometimes have to slow things down, or I'm not able to get out and about quite as much as at other times. So that can be really frustrating and can really curtail things. And also, again, medical appointments for me on top of that. So again, the freedom and flexibility of home education means that we can limit the impact of that on our lives, in the sense of, you know, not having to take them out of school and all of those kind of things and all that comes with that. But also it can be really difficult because it can mean that every week is being thrown. And one of my daughters in particular really thrives with routine. So any deviation from that, she really struggles with. So then you're dealing with so many more emotions on top, which again, home educating, brilliant that we have the option to be able to adapt and provide the flexibility to support that. But I think at the moment, like, you can feel like you're drowning in that as well. Like, sometimes there are moments where I think, God, this should be easier than it is. And there are moments where I really struggle with the balance of wanting to focus on those emotional needs and just provide that stability, that regulation, but also being really mindful of the academic side of it and feeling that pressure, which I think we all feel. And although I know from experience that, you know, I sat the other day, and my daughter had just finished on an online class, and she would be classed as having special educational needs. She'd never been to school, so it's not been like sort of labelled as such. But she had done the whole class on her own. It was a history class on the Mayans, and she's been absolutely like loving these classes. And she'd done this whole worksheet and she'd written out all of the stuff. I've never done writing with her. I've never done spelling. Yeah. And yet she'd written all this stuff on this worksheet. And some of the words weren't spelt correctly, but they were slightly more challenging words. And, you know, I thought, even though I know that I don't need to put the pressure on with the academic side, I don't need to be, you know, hammering in all of this stuff in the same way that they do in school, because I've seen the evidence and I've watched my children develop and have those skills without me formally sitting and doing that. I still feel the pressure that I'm not doing enough, that I'm not spending enough time on that. And I feel that even more when I'm more incapacitated, where I feel like even more it goes, I should be doing more because I'm taking the time to sit and rest. But then also, even doing that, you're teaching your children, you're showing them that at times you need to prioritize your own well-being and how to do that. And I think they'll then know that they can do that when they're older and they need to, if they need to, well, we all need to rest. And it's not something I'm very good at doing. ADHD, I'm like, I get really like, I need to get outside the house. I need to like go and do stuff. So I find it really hard when I have flare-ups and things and I have to force myself to do less and rest. But all of that is teaching, all of that is learning. We're so hard on ourselves. And I think even more so when you home educate, because you feel this immense responsibility to prove you've made the right choice. And there's literally everyone's waiting there
Waiting
to
for
go,
you
I
to
told you.
fail. Yeah, they are. The school, all the ex-teachers, the LA, if you're unlucky, and even if you're lucky sometimes, the neighbors, the family, everybody, everyone on social media. I know.
Yeah, they absolutely all are. And I think that pressure, yeah, it's a lot. And I think, yeah, it's the balance. I just feel I'm walking a tightrope all the time.
Between
And between, like, I suppose between living the Instagram curated life, but not to that extreme, but that kind of the dream of home ed where it's like, oh yeah, we're completely free and flexible and, you know, that kind of unschooling vibe that everybody wants their children to like not have ever had to study anything but be geniuses, you know? And so between that and, you know, being really regimented, I think I swing between it. And I think I panic when I swing too far either way. And when life gets crazy, sometimes I just fall off that tightrope and I'm like just in the ether.
when life gets crazy,
Doing
do you
nothing.
tend to fall one way or the other? Like, do you go like I know when it was me, I would go like full pelt, like structured. I'd be like, right, we need a plan, and this is our timetable. But like, I wonder whether maybe it's also possible to fall off the other way and be like, I'm just gonna leave you to do whatever you want to do because I'm dying here.
Yeah, I think I do. And then I think sometimes I just fall down in the middle, like where I feel like I'm not doing, like I'm kind of doing both half-heartedly and not kind of benefiting from either.
I had an image of you like flopped out on the tightrope wire, not going back or forth, but not falling on
Yeah.
either side, just like a liar. It'd be like cut up
Yeah,
in half.
exactly that. Exactly that. That's how I feel when it is when bleep hits the fan. That's kind of how I feel. Like I suppose it's that the fight or flight response. I do the freeze. Which is why I like to have a semi-structured style of home education, because then when I get in that freeze stage, I at least can do the bare minimum of our semi-structure that makes me feel like, okay, we're still ticking along. And I think that's what works for us, so that I don't panic so much in those times. I'm like, oh, we can still tick along. And I haven't got to be, because even when that pendulum swings to that lovely Instagram curated unschooling,
I'm on a beach with
you know,
pebbles.
skipping through the
I'm
forest,
counting my rocks.
that still takes a lot of
Yeah.
work, right? You know, providing your children with opportunities to learn is, I mean, some would argue harder than doing a structured route.
Sure. Yeah.
So for me, having that semi-structure in, I know I've got that. That's my safety net. And even within that semi-structure, like that's my safety net for when I'm not coping, because I know they've still got stuff that can tick along. But it's also stuff that I know that if they don't have the capacity, they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
We can throw it out the window. And I think that's what we've found that works, because if I'm out, having some things that they can access that I don't have to put loads of energy into means that they're still getting some input, they're still being entertained, not entertained is the wrong word, but occupied,
I
I
think it, I
suppose.
think it's a good word.
Yeah.
Because
And
sometimes it is about just like ticking things along. Sorry, I'm looking for something. Sometimes it is about like ticking things along and just kind of getting through, isn't it? It's just about like let's just
yeah, yeah,
like lying on that tightrope and being like nobody move me, nobody jiggle me or juggle me because otherwise I'm going to fall off. Basically, it's like let's just keep
yeah.
everything very
Don't
still.
add anything else on the
Yeah,
plate because
exactly.
that's what happens. Something else comes along, and then, like Charlotte, she's fallen off
Yeah,
that
it's
tightrope right
just
now.
too much. It reaches a point where it's just too much.
And that's what's horrible when you're in that place is one more thing and you're gone. And I
Mm.
think you feel very vulnerable when you're in that
Yeah.
place, and I think never more so than now, with everything that's going on about home ed and the pressure that people are feeling from the local authority and from people around them, and with the whole safeguarding issues and all of that, I think there are a lot of people who are not asking for the support that they need at those times, are not wanting to share openly about those struggles and about those times when it's really hard because they're worried about what that will mean
Yeah.
and
Will
how
they
it will
be
be
accused of
interpreted.
not coping or
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that new line in the bill, if it's in their best interests or whatever it is, right? I mean, that's so broad that if you were to turn around and say, oh, I'm having a really difficult day and we're just gonna like bin everything off and like I'm not sure I can I'm like really struggling, that could be like, well, this is not great for their well-being. They should be back in school. I mean, God knows teachers have those days regularly, but that's not, and I suppose there is a worry, isn't there, that it's gonna get worse and worse.
yeah, I think so. I think, and what concerns me with that is that the the community is going to really close down and people aren't going to share so much, and then everyone's going to feel like they're the only one,
Yeah.
and B, people aren't going to get the support, even if it's just someone going, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we keep these sort of conversations going for that very reason, because I just think, you know, although it's scary to admit that you don't get it right all the time
Yeah.
and that sometimes your home education days look like just surviving, that that's okay, because you would have those days whether they were in school or they're at home.
Well, I think it can be weeks. And I think this is the thing
Well,
is like
oh yeah.
sometimes I think it can be like, oh, like it's okay, the odd day, but sometimes it can feel like weeks, if not months, where you're just kind of pushing through and hoping for the best, you know?
And I think what we have to remember is that in home education, we have the freedom that we can, what you can achieve in a week or a month or 3 months in home education is way more than will be achieved over an academic year potentially. So even if you have a few months where you're not doing that, it doesn't feel like, I'm not going to say that you're not doing that much, because children are always learning and children are always absorbing, and you're going to be hard pushed to be doing nothing even if you think you're doing nothing, because you'll probably still end up having some in-depth conversation about, I don't know, some weird thing that they're into. Even if you're just lying dying on the sofa, they'll still be talking at you about some crazy thing. What does this mean, mummy? So they're always learning, but even if you've been doing the bare minimum, shall I say, for a few months, that doesn't mean that over that year you're not still going to have achieved a huge amount, and they're not going to have made massive progress in that time. Babies don't develop in the best way if they don't have all the stimulation, but they will still develop.
Well,
They will still learn stuff. They'll still learn to walk. They'll still do all of those things, even if you don't actively take them to loads of baby classes and do all of these amazingly wonderful things. You know, children and adult, humans are just designed to learn and adapt and stuff. So I think it's about not being afraid of that, even though, I mean, I say that, and I'm constantly afraid of it.
the vast majority of my children's learning was, apart from the quantifiable learning for GCSEs, the vast majority of it took place between the two of them when they were playing creatively together. Like that's the vast majority of their learning, not just about themselves, but about the world. And then they would like find out stuff about what they were doing. And that's the vast majority of their learning was that. It's only when you get
Yeah.
to like exams and things like that that it starts feeling a bit more like I've got to like put stuff in. And I think that one thing I think is that when you home educate, it's almost like you're like a project manager. It's like somebody says to you, okay, like you're going to be the project manager of this project, and it's 6-month project or 6-year project or 16-year project, right? And you don't, it's like sometimes you don't know how long it's going to be, or sometimes you know it's just going to be for a period of time. And they're like, okay, you're going to be the project manager. You don't know anything about this, right? And you don't know anything that's going to happen. You've got no money to sort it, and we're not going to give you any resources or any advice. And you've got to, and it's really high stakes, right? And you're going to feel like it's the highest stakes in the world, and off you go, like enjoy your project. And there are going to be regular times, I think, through the years where you think to yourself, that's it, like the project's failed, it's all gone wrong. Like, I was given this one project and like I've ruined it, and now I've not just ruined my own peace of mind, but my children's future. And it just becomes this massive high stakes project where you're just left completely on your own. No one appreciates what you're doing. Nobody gives any kind of like compassionate support, as you say, because there's an assumption that we're just putting them back in school. I think that I had because obviously, as you know, if we take the analogy of project management, I'm at the very, very end of my project, right? So I've been doing this project since 18 years. So it's been an 18-year project management, right? And I'm just at the very tippy end of it. And then in this last week, everything went wrong. Like all the things that I thought we'd achieved as an ultimate end of the project weren't there anymore. And it was like, when did sometimes when it's just like everything is like, when did this happen? Like in the last week, when did this huge pivot? Like, oh, I don't, when they've like I know Charlotte's got a daughter who's really into gym, right? It's gym, isn't it? Like gymnastics, right? And I suspect that Charlotte in her head and her daughter have a kind of future envisioned about like what this is going to look like. And it's like if she was to suddenly turn around and be like, oh yeah, I don't want to do gym anymore. I'm going to become a Minecrafter or something. And you just be like what? Like and then you have to pivot so quick, and you have to be like okay, like should I be like changing their mind? Should I be pivoting with them?
Already had a snack, but if you are desperate for another one, then please do go ahead.
Celebrities.
Pardon?
What can I have?
Well, you know what there is.
Okay.
This.
If I think that the ability to be able to pivot when you home educate without guilt is probably the biggest thing. Being able to just flex with stuff and not feel bad about it.
Also not feel annoyed about it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's another thing, like, because when you were saying about both your child and you having this vision, it's really irritating if they suddenly decide, no, I don't like doing that anymore. And you're like, oh, no, but I had this, like, I wanted you to go and do all of these amazing things. And
I had
they're
in my
still going to go and
mind
do amazing things.
for years, I had in my mind that my son was going to do theoretical physics at university. This was based on the fact that he loved physics and was very good at it. But I was also watching The Big Bang Theory, and there was a theoretical physicist in there who was very like my son, actually, Sheldon. And so that just in my head for years, I was like, oh yeah, theoretical physics. And like, I always try really hard not to do this, but there is a certain amount of kind of bragging rights to theoretical, like, oh yeah, like, oh, he's doing theoretical physics at Cambridge or something. And it's like, my head tried really hard not to go there, but it had gone there, and it had camped out there. It was like happily camped out in this little meadow. And just so many times when you think, oh, they'd be so good at this, and then they're saying, yes, I really want to do this, and then 2 weeks later they come up with something, and you're like, What?
It is really hard. And I'm at the other end, particularly with my youngest. She's 7, and she has no interest in anything. Not that she has no interest in anything, but she's just like, there's not anything that she's like, oh yeah,
Nothing stands
I'm
out.
really into that.
Mm.
Whereas my other two are slightly older, 10 and 11, and my 11-year-old's always been like, she's really into like the arts and dancing and drama, and she's really into English and like Shakespeare and
Mm.
all the classics and all of that. And she's always had those passions, which I've been able to help her follow, although she's also now suddenly developed a passion for physics as well, which is awesome and
Very
completely
creative. No, it's
off.
no, I get that. It's
Gee,
very creative.
yeah.
Yeah. It
Oh,
works
okay.
really
Yeah,
well
well, I
with
was
those.
there.
When my
Oh,
son was
there you go.
applying for his maths degree last week, which was part of the pivot, um, he put down things like that he writes fiction, that he plays the piano,
Yeah.
because they actually a lot for physics and maths, which are like those kind of subjects. They're looking
Mm,
for these kind of Renaissance people, that kind of just have that kind of creativity, because there's a lot of creativity in physics, so that could work. Very nice.
yeah. Well, you do need, yeah, that's
Maybe
true.
she'll
Well,
become the
yeah, 'cause you
theoretical physicist, and I can go and camp in your meadow.
you really sorry about the slamming doors.
I can't hear them.
Uh, oh, you can't.
Or maybe I'm just so I
They
can
just go
sometimes I
back
can
and
hear
forth.
children like going up and down stairs, I think, but
Yeah, they are. They're going back and forth.
very cute. It's like little heffalumps
They're
going up and down.
they're very busy. I dread to think what I'm going to find afterwards. But yeah, so I think for people who are at the other end as well, there's this panic when your children aren't like, she's like, so my youngest is just a bit meh about everything. And then it's really hard to like get them motivated, where because the other two, so my 10-year-old has always been animal obsessed, to anything to do with animals. And so I always knew with them how to tailor their learning. But my youngest is just, I'm just like that. I find it really hard to get her motivated, and she's got ADHD, so she finds concentrating really difficult anyway. And also she's a classic third child where I don't know whether she's just copying her sisters or whether those are her likes and things, because she's just very much looks up to them. And I don't say so I know there'll be a lot of people potentially who are thinking, at that beginning where it's really stressful, where you're like, my child isn't into anything. I don't know. And then you don't know what direction to take it in. You don't know how to motivate that learning and what they're going to do. And it's that panic because everybody asks about it. When they're asking about their home ed journey, they're like, what are they doing? What are their passions like? What are they into? And you're like, nothing.
Yeah.
They just like float around a bit, do a bit of this, bit of that.
I think that one of the biggest bits of advice I would give for that, and I think we've all experienced that. I know I certainly have a kind of general, not exactly a malaise, but just a kind of like, yeah, like everything's okay or everything's not okay, whatever, right? Like there's neither of my two had big interests until they were in their teens. So it was all just a bit floaty. We used to do summer school. So, because we always home educated all the way through the year, pretty much every single day, apart from like birthdays, Christmases, like big things like that, right? Because we kept the times really short. And so we would do a summer school every summer where they would each choose 3 completely outlandish things they wanted to learn. So we did rock carving, video editing, ancient Greek. We did all sorts of like weird and wonderful things, and they would suggest them. And we did them for like 6 weeks over summer, like a summer school. And they each had to do the others as well. So like with yours, if each of them came up with 3 and then everyone did all 9, and it broadens everything out. And I found that really helpful over the years to get them like a sense of what is, like, my son was super into languages, and I didn't realize until we did ancient Greek, and my daughter was super into video editing. And again, I would not have realized that until we did the Lego stop editing stuff. So I think that can be really helpful. It's fun, and it gives them a sense of being in control of their learning for a bit, which I think is really nice. Just to finish, what would be your one biggest tip for home educators when when things are going to hell in a handcart?
My biggest tip would be like focus on the priority. Like just don't worry about everything else. Like if everything's gone crazy, what is it that is needed in that moment? Primarily for you, because put your own life jacket on first and all that jazz, and for them, because depending on what it is, because it can be as simple as everyone's got a sickness bug or whatever, or it can be as big as a big trauma, or a loss of someone or something. And so what's the priority? What are the needs right now? And just focus on that. And what I would say is stay in the moment, because what I have a tendency to do is go, and this is going to go on forever and it's going to be awful, and they're going to be dropouts and not be able to get a job and not be able to read and write or whatever, And the reality is, even if it goes on for 6 months, it's a moment in time, and just try and stay in that moment and not panic. I think that's, I'm saying this to myself too.
I think mine's really similar, because I think mine is really similar. Mine is like drop expectations, like stay in the moment, just drop expectations. I think so much of it is, it's called object relations or something, and it's like it's not so much the thing that's happening, it's your thoughts about the thing that's happening, or it's your feelings about the thing that's happening. And I think there's a lot of that in home education. I think like something can happen and then we just layer all this meaning onto it and make it like this catastrophic thing, and oh my god, but I expected this and I wanted this and I thought this. And actually, when you remove all of that extra stuff, your thoughts about it and your feelings about it, the thing itself is just a moment in time, like you say, and sometimes a moment in quite a long time, lots of moments in a long period of time, but they are still that. The best advice I was ever given when my son was first born, so this was like 20 years ago, was from a lady who lived in our little village, and she had lots of children. She ran the post office. She had like so many children. It was like something from the Waltons. And she said, I was super heavily pregnant, and I didn't ask for any advice, but I went into the post office and she said, may I give you some advice? And I thought, well, she's got a lot of kids, man, so I'm going to bring that on. And she said, nothing lasts for more than 2 weeks. She said, if you just remind yourself of that nothing, like it, no phase, no nothing will last for longer than 2 weeks, you'll be able to get through. And she was proven pretty right. Not much lasted for much longer than 2 weeks. It always shifted or morphed into something a bit better or a bit different or a bit worse, but nothing stays as it is for more than about 2 weeks. And if you can get through that, you can get through it.
That's really good advice. And I think as well, even in schools, when they report on a child, when they provide a progress report for the year, they're looking over the whole year and the progress. And I think that's what we have to remember as well, is that, like they say to you, like if you're trying to lose weight or whatever, they're like, don't weigh yourself every day, because
you're looking for
like
overall
it fluctuates,
trends, right?
Exactly. And you've got to remember that as long as over the year there's been progress, you are doing, you are providing an education, you are doing the right thing. And it would be very unlikely that a child would get to the end of a yearly period and have not made any progress at all. So I think, just like you say, remembering that they're moments in time, they're short little times, and even within those times, they're still, even those hard times, you think back to like the baby element, even in those hard times, there were moments of joy. So even in the times
we find it.
Yeah. And even in the times where you're not doing anything, they will still be learning. There will still be moments they'll be learning, even if you feel like you're doing nothing. Yeah. So
I agree. Yeah. I think that
hang in there.
Exactly. If you're on your tightrope, just like slowly try to get to your feet, and you'll be okay. Next week, I believe we are going to be talking about, unless something radically changes, I think the plan for next week is we're going to be talking about an article we saw in the Telegraph, which was entitled something like, there's no such thing as special needs, your children are just naughty. And we thought, oh, that's a fun one. And Charlotte will definitely be with us for that, even if she's giving birth, because I know she's super motivated to join for that one. Because she's got opinions, I've got opinions, and Emily's got opinions, and my guess is that we're all got slightly different opinions on that one. So this could be a fun one. So we will see you all next week for our live. If you're watching this on replay, say hi. It's a lonely place out here if no one talks to us. And thank you so much, Emily. That was fun. I'm going to carry on with my day. You can turn your fan back on.
Can and stop melting.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Home Education Matters podcast. See you at the next one. Have a lovely day.